September 1918. The German High Command is panicking. They are not panicking about a lost battle. They are not panicking about running out of food. They are panicking about a single weapon carried by American soldiers. It is not a tank. It is not a gas bomb. It is a shotgun. In an unprecedented move, the German government sends a furious diplomatic cable to Washington. They claim this weapon is inhumane. They claim it causes unnecessary suffering. And then they issue a threat that chills the blood of every American soldier. Any prisoner found with this weapon will be executed by firing squad. This is the story of the Winchester Model 1897. The weapon that was so effective, the enemy tried to ban it. To truly appreciate why this weapon was a nightmare, we have to look closer at the engineering. The Winchester Model 97 was not just a gun, it was a rugged tool of survival. The heat shield was a crucial modification. In a firefight, the barrel of a shotgun gets hot enough to burn skin instantly. The U.S. Army added a perforated steel shroud over the barrel. This meant a soldier could fire 50 rounds, reload, and physically grab the barrel to use the bayonet without burning his hand. It turned the gun into a spear as well as a cannon. And then there was the bayonet itself. The M1917 bayonet was 16 inches long, a sword in its own right. When mounted on the shotgun, it gave the soldier a terrifying reach in close quarters. Imagine the psychological impact. An American soldier jumps into your trench. He has a weapon that sounds like a cannon, fires a wall of lead, and has a sword attached to the end of it. German diaries from 1918 describe a specific sound that haunted them: the metallic clack-clack of the pump action echoing in the dark. It was the sound of the Grim Reaper cocking his scythe. To understand why this gun terrified an empire, you have to look at the trenches of 1917. The war had stalled. Millions of men were staring at each other across no man's land. But the real problem wasn't crossing the land, it was clearing the trenches. Imagine you jump into a German trench. It is a narrow, muddy corridor. You are face to face with the enemy, and you are holding a bolt-action rifle. The standard rifle of World War I was 5 feet long with a bayonet. It was designed to shoot a man at 500 yards. In a tiny trench, it was useless. It was like trying to fight in a phone booth with a pool cue. If you missed your first shot, you were dead before you could reload. The soldiers were desperate. They started using shovels, clubs, and knives. The most advanced armies in history were fighting like cavemen because their technology had failed them. The Americans had a different idea. They didn't look to the future for a solution. They looked to the Wild West. They brought the Winchester Model 97. It was a pump-action shotgun designed by John Moses Browning. But the Army modified it into a monster. They added a bayonet lug and a heat shield so you could keep firing until the barrel glowed red. But the real terror was inside the mechanism. This gun had no trigger disconnector. This meant you didn't have to pull the trigger for every shot. You could just hold the trigger down and pump. Slam bang, slam bang, slam bang. In the hands of a skilled soldier, it could fire 6 shots in 2 seconds. Each shell contained 9 heavy lead pellets. That's 54 projectiles in the air in 2 seconds. In a narrow trench, you didn't need to aim. You just pointed it down the hallway and cleared it. The soldiers called it the trench broom because it swept the trash out. When the Germans first faced this weapon, it was a massacre. German stormtroopers were the elite. They were used to terrifying the enemy. But against the shotgun, their training was useless. There is no dodging a wall of lead. There is no taking cover. One American soldier, armed with a Model 97, jumped into a German trench in France. He encountered a squad of 7 Germans preparing to attack. In less than 3 seconds, all 7 were down. The survivors were horrified. The wounds caused by the buckshot were devastating. Field surgeons couldn't stitch them up. The lead carried dirty uniform fabric into the body, causing instant infection. The German morale cracked. They felt it was unfair. They said, "This is a hunting gun. You are treating us like animals." But the Americans didn't care about fairness. They cared about winning. We talk about statistics, but let's talk about a specific man. Let's talk about Sergeant Fred Lloyd. On a foggy morning in a French forest, Lloyd found himself separated from his unit. He was alone, carrying only his Model 97 trench gun. He stumbled upon a German machine gun nest, a position that would normally require a squad to take out. There were 5 German soldiers manning it. Lloyd didn't retreat. He advanced. He walked straight toward them. The Germans swiveled their machine gun, but before they could fire, Lloyd pumped his shotgun. Boom! The first shot took out 2 gunners. Clack boom! The second shot hit the loader. The remaining Germans panicked. They had never seen a weapon that could wipe out half a squad in 2 seconds. They tried to run. Lloyd didn't let them. He cleared the entire machine gun nest single-handedly in under 10 seconds. When his commanding officer arrived, they found Lloyd standing over a silent nest reloading his shotgun. He had done the work of 10 men with 1 weapon. This story spread through the German lines like a virus. It wasn't just a gun, it was a force multiplier. It made 1 American equal to 5 Germans. This brings us back to the diplomatic cable. Germany, the nation that invented poison gas, the nation that used flamethrowers to burn men alive, was now complaining about cruelty. The hypocrisy was staggering, but the threat was real. The order went out to all German units: kill any American with a shotgun. Suddenly, carrying the trench broom was a death sentence. Officers worried that American troops would throw their shotguns away to avoid execution. But the opposite happened. The threat proved that the weapon was working. The soldiers gripped their shotguns tighter. They knew they were holding the one thing the enemy feared most. The American commander, General Blackjack Pershing, read the German threat. Pershing was a hard man. He didn't blink. He sent a reply that should be framed in military history. He wired Berlin, "If you execute 1 American prisoner for carrying a shotgun, we will execute German prisoners in retaliation." And he raised the stakes. He said for every American soldier killed, the U.S. would select German officers and shoot them. It was a brutal game of poker. Pershing was betting that the German officers valued their own lives more than they hated the shotgun. He was right. The Germans went silent. The executions never happened. The diplomatic protest died. The German diplomatic protest was actually quite specific in its description of the wounds. They wrote to the Swiss embassy, "The gun is forbidden by the laws of war because it is superfluous to the sole object of war, which is to disable the enemy." They argued that a soldier hit by buckshot takes weeks to die in agony, whereas a rifle bullet kills instantly or heals cleanly. General Pershing found this argument laughable. In his private diary, he noted that the Germans were using serrated bayonets, the famous sawback blades, which were designed to pull guts out when removed from a body. He ordered his officers to collect evidence. They found German belts with "Gott mit uns," God with us, written on them, while the soldiers wearing them carried bags of poison gas. Pershing's retaliation order was so severe that it was classified for years. He didn't just threaten to shoot prisoners, he threatened to stop taking prisoners altogether if the Germans didn't back down. The shotgun became the flashpoint for the total brutality of the war's final year. The shotgun stayed in the trenches until the final whistle of the war. It proved so effective that it changed warfare forever. It taught the world a cold lesson. In a fight for survival, there are no civilized weapons. There are only weapons that work and weapons that don't. The Germans wanted it banned because they couldn't beat it, and that is the ultimate compliment in war. The Winchester 97 served again in World War II in Vietnam, and its descendants are used by police and armies today. It remains the only weapon in history to be officially protested for being too effective. This has been Trench Tales. we dig up the forgotten stories of the Great War. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe. We have more stories coming from the front lines.